Good afternoon, you hellbound heathens. Welcome to another edition of Atheist Republic South Africa's Sunday afternoon stream. Today we are going to do the Apologetics Roadshow, and we're going to take a look at a couple of videos and give you an atheist perspective on some of the claims and the out there stories. Yeah, well, let's get started. Right, so we are going to get cracking on number one. This is quite an old one, but still, you know, it's almost like a cookie cutter template.
Well, starting with the historicity of Jesus and whether or not he actually existed, I think scholars have pretty much settled that, where if you ask just about any scholar out there, they'll tell you he did exist. He was born, he lived, he died, he was crucified by the Roman.
Right, let's have a quick look at this magic trick. So he's taking consensus that a guy named Yeshua probably existed and was executed, and trying to pass this off as evidence for the entire Christian story. It's a classic bait and switch. Scholars agree that a man existed. They do not agree that he was born of a virgin, walked on water, magically multiplied food, or came back from the dead. He's piggybacking the supernatural claims onto the mundane historical ones, hoping that you won't notice the difference. It's like saying scholars agree that Abraham Lincoln existed, therefore he was also a vampire hunter.
Looking historically, going back almost years, outside manuscripts and other historical documents detail how there was this fledgling movement of Christians that came out of this area around Galilee, and how they were persecuted by the Roman Empire, and how despite that persecution, as we fast forward to today, that they still existed. They grew and they flourished, and today there's about 2.9 billion Christians worldwide. So historically, there's this picture, this story of what shouldn't have been. It started with this one man who was crucified on the cross. It turned into this small little fledgling group of people, movement of people that were being persecuted by this huge empire that somehow survived that persecution. When there was tons of other faiths or religions that were bursting up in that time that didn't. They were crushed because they were against the state. But yet somehow Christianity not only survived but grew and flourished and became what it is today. That shouldn't have happened. That in and of itself was kind of a miracle.
It shouldn't have happened? According to who? According to someone who failed high school history. This narrative of a tiny persecuted faith miraculously triumphing over a monolithic hostile empire is a Sunday school cartoon. It's not history. Christianity spread for perfectly understandable, non-miraculous reasons. It used Roman roads, spread through established trade routes, offered a compelling message of salvation and community to the poor and the disenfranchised, and it provided social services. Furthermore, Roman persecution was sporadic, localized, and rarely empire-wide until much later on. Many mystery cults, like the cult of Mithras, were also incredibly popular. The one that eventually won out isn't the most miraculous one. It's the one that proved to be the most adaptable, organized, and ultimately the one that managed to seize political power when a Roman emperor, Constantine, decided that it was a useful tool for unifying his empire. This wasn't a miracle, it was a confluence of sociology, economics, and raw political opportunism.
So just looking at historically, that is a miracle, and that is an argument for the truth and the existence of Christianity. It's real, it's tangible, it's survived, it's been somewhat proven. Not to, again, neglect that there's been some evil and some horrible things done in the name of Christianity over time. They haven't always been the ones that were persecuted, but have sometimes been the persecutors. But still, at the end of the day, we're human. And there's good in us and there's bad in us, and we can't toss out that. We can't say that, oh, this Christianity is false just because this has been done in the name of that, or this faith is false because this has been done in the name of that. Looking at Islam, horrible atrocities, 9/11.
And there it is, that desperate pivot to whataboutism. He knows that he has a history problem. The Crusades, the Inquisitions, the witch hunts, the brutal colonization. So what does he do? He points a finger at Islam. Look over there. This isn't an argument, it's a cheap distraction. Look at the mountain of corpses behind me. Look at the other guy's pile over there. He's trying to excuse the atrocities inspired by his faith by suggesting that it's a universal problem. But you can't have it both ways. You can't claim that your religion is a unique force for good in one breath, and then in the next claim that its unique history of violence is just a generic human failing that we shouldn't hold against it.
Bombings, terrorism, there's been so much done in the name of Islam, but does that mean that Islam is all bad, that all Muslims are bad, that faith is irrelevant? I can't say that. I can't toss out this whole group of people and call them misguided based on the actions of a few. So there's active people that are Christians that are being moved by what they say is the Spirit and being motivated by the words of God telling them to love their neighbor.
How very convenient. When Christians do something horrible, it's because we're all human and we have bad in us. But when they do something nice like run a soup kitchen, that's definitive proof of the Holy Spirit at work. This is a pathetic self-serving double standard. If the good deeds are proof of God, then the bad deeds have to be proof of God too. You don't get to take credit for the charity while disowning the genocide. He's cherry-picking the data. The good people prove the religion is true, and the evil people just were misguided humans that don't count. It's a classic no true Scotsman fallacy, so by the way. A true Christian would never do something evil, and therefore anyone who did something evil was never a true Christian. It's an intellectual get-out-of-jail-free card.
Neighbor as themselves, and to care for the least of these, that is propelling them to be a solution to a problem. For me, that comes back to my faith. That comes back to my beliefs that there is a God.
For you, maybe. For the rest of us living in reality, good people doing good things is just good people doing good things. Atheists build hospitals. Muslims run charities. Hindus feed the poor. Secular humanists fight for social justice. To look at the universal human capacity for empathy and altruism and then claim it as an exclusive evidence for your specific supernatural belief is the height of arrogance. It's not proof of your God, it's proof of your desperate need to see God in everything, even in the basic decency that people of all faiths and no faith demonstrate every single day.
That Christianity is that way and that Jesus is our source.
Yeah, you know, and it reminds me of those days that I spent in the pews with the soft, dulcet tones, the chords playing in the background, making you, susceptible to all this nonsense. I'm telling you. Right, who do we have next? We have good old Frank. Come, Frank. Frank has got 4 reasons why Christianity is true. Let's hit it.
The reason that we believe Christianity is true is because the answer to 4 questions is yes. How about the first question? Does truth exist? Obviously, you hear people say all the time, there is no truth, or you got your truth, I got my truth, all truth is relative. When somebody says there is no truth, you ought to ask that person a question. You ought to say, is that true? Is it true that there's no truth? Because if it's true that there's no truth, the claim there is no truth can't be true, but it claims to be true. In other words, it's a self-defeating claim.
Oh, please, spare me the Philosophy 101 gotcha question. Is it true that there is no truth? I mean, this kind of infantile logic trap that makes freshmen feel like geniuses until they realize no one, not even a single thinking person, actually makes that claim. He's triumphantly saying that slaying a dragon that he's invented himself. So he's proven that absolute certainty isn't a complete illusion. Bravo. And now for the real magic trick. Watch him leap from that incredibly low bar straight into, therefore, my specific ancient Middle Eastern death cult is objectively true. He proves A equals A and then expects a standing ovation as if he's just been handed the keys to the universe. And it's not just a leap of logic, it's an insult to anybody's intelligence to think we couldn't see this bait and switch.
Of course there's truth. If there was no truth, an atheist couldn't be right that there was no God. So there is truth. Question number 2, does God exist? There are several arguments for the existence of God. Let me just give you one. Even atheists today are admitting that space, matter, and time had a beginning out of nothing. Well, think about this, friends. If space, matter, and time had a beginning out of nothing, whatever created space, matter, and time can't be made of space, matter, and time. Now, when you think about a spaceless, timeless, immaterial, powerful, personal, intelligent cause, who do you think of? God.
And there it is, the shell game. Watch closely. So we need something spaceless, timeless, and immaterial. Fine, whatever. But then he starts palming the cards. He seamlessly slips personal and intelligent into the deck like we won't notice. It's a con job, pure and simple. He builds a vague philosophical box and then tells you the only thing that could possibly fit inside this box is the exact God that he had in his pocket all along. Who do you think of, he asks, with a smug look on his face. Gee, I don't know. Could it possibly be the answer that you've been subtly force-feeding us the whole time? This isn't an argument. It's a rigged carnival. He's not leading you to a conclusion. He's dragging you by the nose to a pre-written answer, and he has the gall to call it reason.
Now, we don't know it's the Christian God at this point, but we know it's a theistic God, a being who's beyond the world, who created the world. The third question is, are miracles possible? Obviously, Christianity can't be true if miracles are not possible. But the greatest miracle in the Bible has already occurred, and we have scientific evidence for it. What's that? I just mentioned it. The creation of the universe out of nothing. If Genesis 1:1 is true, every other verse in the Bible is at least possible.
You have to admire the sheer unmitigated balls on this one. The argument is literally, my story is believable if you first assume the most unbelievable part of my story is true. This is like trying to prove that you're a millionaire by saying, well, if you just assume that I own the entire planet, then me owning a yacht seems pretty plausible, right? It's a logic pretzel of such profound stupidity that it's almost admirable. And the part about scientific evidence for Genesis 1:1, that's not just a misrepresentation, that's a shameless, bold-faced lie. He's counting on the fact that his audience isn't scientifically literate. He takes the mystery at the edge of cosmological physics and slaps a God-did-it sticker on it. Then he struts around pretending that he is aligned with science. No, the only thing he is proving is that he will say literally anything to sell his point.
Because if there's a being that can create the universe out of nothing, can he do whatever he wants inside the universe? If he can create the whole show out of nothing, of course. He can resurrect Jesus from the dead, or walk on water, or part the Red Sea. He can do any of that. So the final question, the fourth question, which gets us all the way to the Christian God, is the New Testament reliable enough to show us that Jesus rose from the dead? The reason we believe in Christianity is because an event occurred, the resurrection. Now, I have to ask you this. Why would the Jewish writers of the New Testament, all were Jewish with the exception of Luke, why would they invent a resurrected Jesus? Why would they say that a man who claimed to be God rose from the dead if it didn't happen? They thought that would be blasphemy for a man to claim to be God. And why would they invent a resurrected Jesus? They already thought they were God's chosen people. They had no motive to invent a resurrected Jesus.
No motive? No motive? Are we supposed to take that seriously? Is this man allergic? Is this man allergic to history books? Has he ever met an actual human being? No motive. The no motive part from, well, grief, cognitive dissonance, religious ecstasy, the desire to consolidate power, to build community, to give their leaders' pathetic death some profound meaning, and to promise themselves and others an escape from the finality of the grave. Other than those tiny, insignificant details, yeah, sure, no motive at all. And this bit of delusional nonsense, Christianity would be true even if the New Testament never existed. That is an idea so spectacularly dumb that it almost defies commentary. A story about a specific event is true even if the story doesn't exist? How? Does the truth just seep out of the soil in Jerusalem? This isn't just scraping the bottom of the barrel for an argument. This is drilling through the bottom of the barrel into the earth's molten core to pump out bad ideas.
And certainly they could not have invented it in Jerusalem, where an empty tomb existed. In other words, ladies and gentlemen, the New Testament writers did not create the resurrection. The resurrection created the New Testament writers. There would be no New Testament if it wasn't for the resurrection. Now, even if the New Testament never existed, Christianity would still be true. Why? Because Christianity is based on an event, the resurrection. You realize there were thousands of Christians before a line in the New Testament was ever written? Why? Because an event occurred, the resurrection. You have to have more faith to believe it didn't occur than it did. And if God exists, and he does, and can create the universe out of nothing, then he can certainly resurrect Jesus from the dead. That's why we believe in Christianity.
I don't have enough faith to be an atheist, Frank Turek. I mean, honestly, get the fuck out of here with your bad ideas. Right, and then we are going to conclude it on this one here. This is actually a very valid question, is Christianity the right religion? So let's have a listen here.
If there are so many different religions, how can we be sure that Christianity is the right one? And if it is, what about people of other faiths who sincerely try to live for their God? Doesn't that count for something? Well, my name is James Meehan, and today we are talking about the exclusivity of Christianity, which can be a difficult thing when we consider there are billions of different people, thousands of religions, and Christianity claims to be the only true. So how can we be sure that Christianity is actually true? Well, the answer to all of these questions comes back to one thing: the identity of Jesus.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Pump the brakes, James. We start with a fantastic globe-spanning question. There are thousands of religions. Why is yours the only one? And the answer isn't a principle of logic or a type of evidence. The answer is to immediately ignore all the other religions and focus entirely on the main character of your book. That's not an investigation. That's a magician forcing a card. You are rigging the game before the first hand is even dealt.
Because if Jesus really was the Son of God, who died and rose again to rescue us from sin, then Christianity is true.
Let me get this straight. The proof of Christianity is true is, if we assume the core premise of Christianity is true, this isn't an argument, it's a statement of belief, gift-wrapped to look like logic. It's like saying, the Harry Potter books are real history because if a boy wizard really defeated Voldemort, then the books are true. You've accomplished nothing except proving that you know what your religion's claims are.
And if Christianity is true, then Jesus is the only way to God. Here's what he said in John chapter 14, verse 6. He says that I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one can come to the Father except through me.
I love atheist Bible study. I really do. This is oh so perfect. To independently verify if this one book is exclusively true, let's see what a character inside that very book has to say on the matter. I'm on the edge of my seat. You cannot quote the product slogan to prove that the product works. You can't prove Batman is real by quoting a comic where he says, I am Batman. Wielding a Bible verse here isn't evidence. It is an admission that your entire argument can't survive outside of its own echo chamber, my friend.
Jesus doesn't make room for other religions. He says it clearly that he is the only way to God. Nobody comes to the Father except through God. And while that may sound really unfair to us today, imagine if we were talking about the cure to cancer instead of the cure to sin. If a team of scientists and researchers discovered the cure for cancer, everyone would celebrate because this thing that has plagued humanity for far too long can finally be fixed. But they don't stop there. They announce that they're going to give this new cure away completely for free to anyone who needs it. This would literally change the world. But you've got this group of people over here who are pretty ticked. Because this team of researchers only came up with one medicine that cures cancer. And this group of people doesn't want that medicine. They want a different one. So instead of celebrating, they start complaining that this being the only cure to cancer isn't fair to people who want to take a different cure. Are you starting to see the problem?
Yes, I am absolutely starting to see the problem. The problem is that this analogy isn't an insult to doctors, scientists, and anybody with a functioning brainstem. A real cure for cancer comes with objective, falsifiable, empirical evidence. It cures people and we can watch it happen. Your cure comes with feelings, ancient stories, and the threat of eternal punishment if we don't accept it on blind faith. The problem isn't people stubbornly wanting a different cure. It's people asking you to prove that your bottle of faith-healing snake oil isn't just another placebo.
It was 2,000 years ago that God showed up in human form to announce that a cure to sin and death was available to anyone and everyone who wants it. All they have to do is trust in Jesus, and they will gain eternal life. Jesus is the once and for all cure for sin and death, and that is really good news. His exclusive claims are not him being unfair, it's him being clear. Because telling someone with cancer that continuing to take their allergy medicine is fine as long as they're sincere isn't actually going to cure their cancer.
He's right. Sincerity doesn't make a bad medicine work. And guess what? Sincerity also doesn't make a fictional story come true. He desperately wants to put his untestable claims in the same category as verifiable medicine, hoping that we won't notice the one is based on evidence and the other is based on, well, exactly the same sincerity that he just mocked.
That type of advice is misleading at best and manipulative at worst. Now, even hearing all of that, you may still struggle with the fact that there are other people around the world who have grown up being taught a different belief system than Christianity. And you are wondering, what about those people? Because we, like God, want everyone to be saved. 2 Peter 3:9 tells us that the Lord isn't really slow about his promise, as some people think. No, he is being patient for your sake. He doesn't want anyone to be destroyed, but he wants everyone to repent.
And here we go again. The question is, what about the billions of people across history who never got the memo? And the answer is to read another line from the very book that created the problem. He wants everybody to be saved. Really? He's got a funny way of showing it. For millennia, entire civilizations lived and died without even hearing the name Jesus. Is that patience, or is that proof that this story is a regional legend that got lucky with the Roman Empire and the God is waiting for everyone part is just a patch over this massive plot hole.
And this is what's super cool, is that Jesus is really good at introducing himself to people. Like at one time in history, the only people who knew who Jesus was were the people who lived in the same tiny villages. But now, people on every continent know his name and have heard his gospel. And what's even wilder to think about is how just about every other religion acknowledges Jesus in some way. Like the religions that came after him found a way to fit him into their belief set. And the religions that came before him modified their beliefs to create space for Jesus. Because even though Jesus doesn't make room for other religions make room for Jesus.
This is without a doubt the most arrogant and manipulative claim of the entire video. Let's break it down in its dishonesty. Muslims see him as a prophet and categorically deny that he is the divine Son of God, which is the absolute non-negotiable core of your faith. That is a rejection. It's not an accommodation. Buddhists or Hindus might call him a wise man, placing him amongst many, which fundamentally guts your entire premise of his unique exclusivity. This isn't another religion's making room for Jesus move. This is Christianity engaging in a stunning act of theological colonialism. It's taking another culture's polite nod and twisting it into a confession that they secretly know your guy is the real deal. It's intellectually bankrupt, it's disrespectful, and it is the last grasp of an argument that knows it cannot stand on its own 2 feet. For shame.
Buddhists see him as an enlightened one. Hindus believe that Jesus is divine, that he's a saint and a wise teacher. Muslims call him a prophet. Even secular humanists see him as a good moral teacher and an example on how to live with compassion. Because Jesus doesn't make room for other religions, but other religions make room for Jesus. Because of that, it is now our job to help people move from being acquaintances with Jesus to actually being in a relationship with him. Because he is who he said he was, and he did what he said he would do. He is the Son of God who died and rose again to rescue us from sin.
That, my friend, is not how relationships work. Relationships in the classic form typically involves 2 active people participating in it. What you have is talking to yourself and make believe. I'm telling you. Look, as these apologists go, they're a dime a dozen. At the end of the day, I'm not impressed. I haven't really found any new apologists that would even raise the bar a little bit. It's just the same old mouthwash being rinsed and spat out. But yeah, there you have it, my friends. Keep fighting the good fight, and we will definitely see you here on Atheist Republic South Africa. We have got some interviews lined up for you, and yeah, keep fighting the good fight. Like I've said, we'll stay in touch. Be sure to follow us on here on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, like the video. If you need a community, go and check out the Facebook groups. There is an Atheist Republic Facebook group in Johannesburg, Pretoria, Durban, Cape Town, and you can find your community in there. You are very welcome. Catch you on the flip side.